Hello and welcome. This is video number 2 in a 13-part series about World War II. And in this video, the focus will be on Germany attacking France early in World War II. Let's get started. Where we last left it, Germany was ready to go after France. They had secured the northern waterways and area for strategic bases that they had hoped for. Now they were ready to take out one of the bigger elements of opposition that they were currently facing, that being the country of France. So one thing to speak a little bit to regarding preparations that France had made for an event such as this taking place. After World War I, they began to build something that was called the Maginot Line. This was basically a series of fortifications along the border between Germany and France, basically put in as a security measure. One of the things I'm going to ask you to do with today's lesson is to watch a little video that I have that'll talk about how the Maginot Line was constructed and just what it consisted of. It was quite a thing that they built, but unfortunately, as a practical matter, when Germany did decide to invade, as they did here with World War II, a lot of the things about the Maginot Line made it pretty worthless. For starters, it did not make a complete border around France. There were simply places where Germany could just go around the Maginot Line. It also didn't really account for the ability to fly planes over the top of it and also drop men out of those planes. So despite the fact that France had actually taken precautions for a situation such as this, a lot of the different ways that someone like Germany could get into France and get at France were still somewhat vulnerable. So despite France's best efforts to plan ahead, a lot of those plans didn't achieve a whole lot, at least in terms of keeping Germany away. So Germany started heading towards France. Now they would travel through the countries of the Netherlands, Belgium, and Luxembourg. If you look at the map on the screen, you can see that those are just directly to the west of where Germany is located and to the north of where France is located. Those countries all fell very quickly to Germany. The Netherlands surrendered in 4 days, Belgium about 2 weeks until they surrendered. So much like other countries that Germany had encountered up to this point, they had a pretty easy time of it. Now, would France be a more difficult country to take down? Only time would tell. As it would turn out, France would fall just about as easily as the other countries that they had encountered up to that point. Basically, what ended up happening is the German military was able to trap the Allied forces that were in France at that time in the northern part of France, near an area that was the Dunkirk port. And when it became clear that they were basically trapped and there was nowhere else to go and no real opportunity to win militarily, they tried to just get the heck out of there. And even though this might seem like a losing type situation, one thing that's pretty amazing about this retreat and evacuation is the number of people that were able to get away and live to fight another day. The evacuation itself took place over the course of about a week. One of the videos that I'll ask you to watch deals with this evacuation, and it'll speak a little bit to some of the decisions made on both sides during this evacuation time, decisions that would be critical to how things played out. But with this evacuation, basically Great Britain sent whatever kinds of ships that it could to try to pick up men and bring them across the English Channel area over to England to safety. They used military ships, they used fishing boats, basically anything that could float got called into service, and altogether they ended up evacuating to safety approximately 338,000 men. And I think it's important when we think about the future of this war that those were men that, absent that evacuation, they either would have been captured prisoner or they would have been killed. And that would have been soldiers that the Allied side would not have been able to use at any point moving forward. That's an awful lot of people that were able to live to fight another day. And so that, despite a retreat and what appeared to be a loss, did have value and did in some ways feel like a win because that many people were saved, again, to live to fight another day. And so they could feel good about that. Now, France would eventually sign an armistice with Germany. Germany would basically take control of the northern part of the country, the southern part of the country. Um, France was sort of allowed to kind of be its own place, but it was what they normally call a puppet government. It was just somebody in place as a figurehead, but ultimately Germany was pulling the strings. Now there would be a free France resistance movement that would develop shortly after this and would work to try to thwart the Germans any way they could until, as it would turn out, the end of the war. But if you note the time, we're talking June 22nd, 1940. Now France has surrendered. Basically, in Europe at this point in time, Germany either had conquered countries that opposed them, or countries were either neutral or partners of theirs. Really, the only European country that stood in Germany's way of total dominance over Europe was the country of Great Britain. And like so much of this, only time would tell whether Germany would A, go after Great Britain, and B, whether they would be able to take it. This is where the fact that Neville Chamberlain was no longer the prime minister and now Winston Churchill was, would prove to be significant. One of the things that Great Britain pledged as the attack was imminent on their country, that they would never surrender, that they were going to be in this fight and they were going to fight until the end. And a lot of that attitude started with their leader, Winston Churchill. And I think when you see what ends up happening with Great Britain over the course of the next year or so, that determination was a big part of how that next year played out. Well, I hope you found that helpful and informative regarding the situation France faced early in World War II. And I hope that you'll join me for the next video when we take a look at the Battle of Britain. Thanks for watching.